There's some kind of more recent guy that died that we're missing. I think.
And we're live.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Andrew just clicked the button. He's like, I don't give a fuck.
Well, no,
if you
I
guys
already
are
had
ready
clicked the
anymore."
button the first time.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because I was like, we're ready, and we're ready, and then we weren't ready. But
Well, I'm just going to be here enjoying my element, although it would have been nice to put some fit aid in the element. But
Oh, that's what I did.
that's smart. That's smart. But you know
That's
what?
why my thing looks like urine.
Yeah. Well, as we're speaking, I will
Oh.
escape for a little bit and get a fit aid and run back.
You're pretty quick with that stuff, too.
Yeah, I am.
You just...
we're a little bit further now, though.
Yeah, but I'll sprint.
Dude, what do you think about the toilet that's going to be, that we're going to put in here? Yeah. For
Where?
you. For you,
Oh,
buddy.
dude. Okay. That's
The stand-up toilet.
Man, have any of you guys? This is actually really rough. I shouldn't even be talking about this because it's massively disgusting. The first podcast that we did today, I had to, go to the bathroom and I took a shit and thought it was normal. And as I was wiping, I was just like, okay, cool. Cool. Why is there so much shit? Like,
What was
what's
it, like the slip and slide where you wipe and it's like, whoops?
yeah, no, like apparently
It's like rubbing on a marker.
it like ended up like
endless color crayon.
it
hate
just
that.
like it was just like I had to go through many wipes before finishing and being, that was just a rough one. But this element is saving me right now. It's good stuff.
Yeah, we're going to get a toilet right where you stand. It's going to be great.
It's gonna be helpful, man. I'm always
So
shitting.
the only thing that people will notice, I mean, people that are here live, they're going to notice the smell probably. But they're just going to, no, it's
No.
a stand-up. It's a stand-up toilet.
It's a stand-up toilet.
So is it like I guess like a shoe horseshoe? So like
Yeah.
he straddles it?
Yeah, he just has to poke his butt back a little bit.
Oh,
and-
okay.
And he'll be good. So people are just going to notice him, just making
smiling a little bit more.
weird faces, looking off.
And then
into the-
everyone else
into
just
the
kind of turn their
distance.
head looking at him like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we can't have him off screen for any
No.
amount of time.
And it'll be
He's
sound
valuable.
controlled, so nothing will be heard other than, you'll just be seeing my facial expressions, but that's it.
We got poop problems around here.
We do.
Yeah. But I think there can be a better design though. Like if,
For toilets in general?
well, for his specifically, it could just be a, like I said, like a horseshoe. So he's kind of almost straddles it. He's not riding it. Let's not get weird, but you're just on top of it. And so if you pee, it goes forward and then it catches you there. But if you have to take a dump, it goes backwards.
Like a U shape.
Yeah.
I like it.
Oh,
fucking
disgusting.
genius.
Like, why did we even get here?
You're the one that started it.
I didn't start.
I
any
was
of this.
thinking it.
Yeah, he
But
started it.
no.
Because he started the whole get me a toilet thing. And now we're here.
Well, tell people where they could submit us some Bitcoin so we can purchase
know, we
this
gotta-
toilet for him.
We got to get our digital wallet out there.
And also, where the hell can people get some of this damn element? Because this stuff, listen, guys, we've talked about electrolytes.
It's amazing in combination with other stuff too. Like
Yeah.
in water, it's really good. But I don't know about you guys, but I put it in all kinds of weird stuff. I put it in like Coke Zero and shit like that. It's fucking awesome.
It's good.
So I put the new grapefruit one inside of zero sugar
Okay,
squirt.
as you tell them, I'm going to go get myself this to put in my element.
Squirt is good.
Squirt is really good, but when you put the grapefruit inside that, it's careful. He took his Crocs off to run. It's a party. But anyways, you guys got to head over to drinklmnt.com/powerproject. You can pick up a free sample pack. You're going to get 8 samples for free. All you have to do is pay for the $5 shipping. Or if you want to just dive in, pick up a value bundle. That's the best value, obviously. But no, it's so great having this big old box. It says Salty AF on it. It's freaking awesome. That's going to be 4 boxes for the price of 3. And you can get any of the flavors. Hopefully they're in stock. Every time we mention grapefruit or the watermelon, it ends up selling out. So hopefully that's currently in stock. But yeah, head over to drinklmnt.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description as Nsima walks by, as well as the podcast show notes. Head over there ASAP.
All right. Well, today we got a kind of a shitty topic because we're talking about the severity of a bunch of individuals that have died in bodybuilding, and just want to be respectful to the people that are left behind that have to, deal with that. It's a shitty thing to have to go through. But a lot of individuals in bodybuilding have had heart attacks. It's debatable on whether, it's directly from particular drugs. I would just have to say, being a person that has a pretty good amount of experience in rubbing elbows with a lot of really high-level people that have used performance-enhancing drugs, and I myself using performance enhancing drugs, I would just say that they're not helpful in terms of you being very healthy. And the accusations that steroids are harmful to your heart, which we've heard for a long time. I mean, I think that information has kind of come all the way from like the 80s and maybe even earlier. I think this has been something that's been pretty well known for a while, and it's not one of those things that turns out to not be true. I think there is a lot of truth to it. I think it can compromise your heart. But I think, in my opinion, what's going on here is I think we're dealing with a bunch of circumstances that are hard to really pinpoint, but I would have to say the main culprits, in my opinion, are that your blood becomes thick, and you in many cases will end up with high blood pressure. This doesn't happen to everybody. It doesn't happen all the time. It happens to some people sometimes, but there's ways of avoiding that. But just think about if your blood is thick and your pressure is high, your body wants to try to pump the blood through you quickly, but it can't because the blood is thick. So if you had high blood pressure and you were healthy otherwise, the high blood pressure would not be a huge concern, although if it's too high, it's always a concern.
What drugs cause the blood to be thick anyway?
You know what? I don't exactly know the mechanism behind a lot of it, but I do believe that just taking testosterone will make your blood, make your red blood cell count higher. Making your red blood cell count higher, I think, makes your blood more sludgy. I could be misspeaking. So I know there's certain types of anabolics that do that more so, like equipoise. I'm not sure about Tren. Tren's probably not great for that either. Blood pressure is pretty easily triggered by a whole slew of things, water retention being like the number one culprit. And when you take how many women have you heard talk about their hormones and talk about how they hold more water during certain times of the month, right? With men, you start to alter your hormones around and you start to move them around a bit. You're going to hold more water as well. So that is pretty common. And then a lot of times bodybuilders are trying to get real big. And so they're eating carbohydrates and stuff. Carbohydrates aren't bad, but they can help you to hold more water. You're walking around a lot bigger of a human than your body ever expected. You graduated high school, 180 pounds. You lifted from the time you were 18 till the time you were 25. You went from 180 to 210. You looked pretty good, looked pretty jacked. But then you went on a cycle, and now forever you have an extra 50 pounds. That's quite common, actually, to have an extra 40, 50, in some cases even more, weight on your body. There's a price to pay with that there's a cost of that. Your body's not used to that, and it may never get used to that.
And with that in mind, when you're talking about like what somebody can take to thicken up their blood, snoring will thicken up your blood. So now think about all
what do you mean?
Like literally like snoring. So like
sleep apnea for
sleep
sure.
apnea, there you go. Sorry, thank you.
Okay.
Better answer, sleep apnea. Now think about all the things that cause sleep apnea, getting bigger, all these other things, that we're taxing our body. So it is the drugs, but it's also what they do to your body, and then that also leads to more other side effects that just all compound on each other.
I mean, it makes sense why a lot of bodybuilders, like Jay Cutler, Jay Cutler seems to be doing pretty well. A lot of these bodybuilders that have gone on, there's a certain point where you probably need to try to call it. You probably need to try to get yourself back to a normal or a semi-normal body composition for yourself, because, I mean, I'm assuming when individuals do take steroids, it's not like there's something like growth hormone makes your organs get bigger. So your heart will probably hypertrophy a bit, but like, it's not like your heart gets bigger to handle the amount of muscle and tissue that your blood or that it now needs to pump blood to. So you're like, that's why you also see a lot of these individuals when they speak or when they're doing things, they have very labored breathing. You know what I mean? They're breathing super heavy. They're winded through just like walking.
If you ever seen me bench press, years ago, I would come off the bench, not just like red and not even just purple, but like a grayish purple. Like it didn't look healthy. It looked like somebody was like holding me underwater for way longer than my body could fucking handle. And that's just, it's not good, and I don't have any problem admitting it. I don't have any problem facing whatever's in my future. If I have health issues and health concerns,
Man, knock on some wood. It's not gonna happen.
yeah. No, I want to make it clear that like I am aware. I'm aware of what I've done. I'm not fully aware. I won't be fully aware until who knows when. But I think these individuals have made sacrifices for certain things, and you hear people say certain things where you're like, I really wonder. I don't know about that. But sometimes people will say, I would die to be in that guy's position. And you kind of wonder, you're like, you're probably just speaking and probably just saying some drastic words to share with somebody how into something you are, and you actually wouldn't want to die for it. But I think it kind of feels that way sometimes. Man, I would do anything to be a black belt. Man, I would do anything to be able to bench press 900 pounds. You hear people say that sometimes. And I think when you're caught up in the moment, it can be, for some individuals, it can be enticing to go down a road of thinking, I'm going to do whatever, whenever. I'm going to do anything and everything that I possibly can. Not even within reason. I'm just going to do anything and everything I possibly can to be the best that I can possibly be.
It's necessary, and I think it's great that a lot of individuals have been making videos. Seth Rossi made a video about this. Greg Doucette made a video. I think Derek, More Plates, More Dates, made a video about it. But this is something really important for a lot of individuals to consider, because you see these bodybuilders or some of these individuals dying of heart attacks, and I think, what was your statistic on the rate of heart attacks in men under 40?
Yeah, they said 1 in 5
in general, right?
Yeah.
So that's 1 in 5. But then, if you add in use of these drugs, they can probably compound that situation.
Mm-hmm.
It can get higher. So if you're a young cat, think hard about that, because a lot of this stuff, people hop on, and some are on for a little bit, some are on for a long time. It's something that you really should think about. But we were having this conversation the other day. There are different types of bodybuilding. There's competitive NPC level bodybuilding, where if you want to be competitive there, you have to be using steroids. There's natural bodybuilding, and then there's individuals who just, they train with bodybuilding, but they just stay healthy. So they're muscular, etc. But, they do it not to compete. They do it because they like the lifestyle. So it makes you wonder, as far as, the sport of bodybuilding, can it be looked at as health and fitness?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that competition brings out some drastic times call for drastic measures, and so when you start to feel like the opposition is overwhelming in some way, that's when you're going to take risks that you otherwise wouldn't take. If you were dominating somebody in whatever sport it is, you wouldn't really take any risk. If you're playing a football game and you run up the middle and your guy gets 15 yards every play, you don't even bother to throw the ball. You're like, okay, we'll just fucking run it. Just keep running these guys over the whole game. It's going to be kind of an easy day. There's no reason to take any risks. So I think competition naturally brings about you taking more risks than necessary. Sometimes it's a little easier if you're playing a sport recreationally to just say, I didn't really go I didn't go that hard to steal the ball because I was a little worried that, I got a weird ankle and I was worried that I was going to twist it or whatever. But if you're playing on a team and it's competition and you're the defensive end and that's your job to tackle the guy that goes, you're not supposed to let anybody go outside of you. You are going to do anything and everything you can to get there to make sure that you make the play, and therefore you might snap your ankle.
Mm-hmm. But, when it comes to, it's interesting, because when people have looked at, let's look at natural bodybuilding versus NPC level bodybuilding. People talk about it and they're like, who cares about natural bodybuilding? We want to see the mass monsters because those guys look really crazy. But one thing is like, even though with natural bodybuilding, when you get that lean, hormonal things happen. Like, when you get that lean, your testosterone tanks, you don't feel good. You don't want to be there for a long time, but you don't see this thing happening to those individuals. Mm-hmm. Like, you see natural bodybuilders living for a really long time. From what I know, I don't know any natural bodybuilder so far who's been reported getting a dying of a heart attack early on. You know
I would
what
say
mean?
bodybuilding in general is like it can be extraordinarily healthy. I will do bodybuilding practices my entire life.
Same here.
You know, it's like doing 3 sets of 10 and like lifting for hypertrophy and lifting under control. I mean, you can think about all the different people that you know. Anybody listening to this, think about all the different people that you know. Who do you know that can't embark on a bodybuilding regimen? I mean, every person that you know can do some form of bodybuilding.
Yes.
Everyone can go in the gym and do 3 sets of 10 of leg extensions, 3 sets of 10 of leg curls, 3 sets of 10 of bicep curls, 3 sets of 10 tricep push downs. Maybe they can't do some of the full range of motion squats and some of the things you see the high level bodybuilders do, but they can certainly participate in some workouts that have just enough intensity to induce hypertrophy, but not so much intensity to kind of smash the nervous system and to really wear down your joints and stuff like that. On top of that, the practices of bodybuilding when it comes to your nutrition oftentimes are extremely healthy. Obviously, there's the far end of the range of like trying to bulk, and there's the far end of the range of trying to get super lean. But we know a lot of people that have utilized bodybuilding techniques, and they seem to be extremely healthy. Even those who have kind of taken it to an extreme, like a Jay Cutler, like a Michael Hearn. I mean, these guys, they appear to be really healthy. So whatever happened in these other cases, it's kind of hard to say. But when you get into, you start to kind of wonder, like, have these guys gotten their blood work done? Have they examined that? It would be really hard for me to believe that they haven't got their blood work done. We've had a lot of these guys on the show, and most of them have said yes. Like it was an important factor. Like they want to see how big they can get, but even though they might seem to be fairly irrational with the amount of drugs that they use, they actually still are checking in on it. And they're like, you know what? I can't really afford to gain another 10 or 20 pounds. Actually, after this competition, I'm going to have to lose some weight and start to think about being a little healthier.
So let me ask you this, because I mean, when we've talked about this, you, myself, and Andrew, you see everybody talking about the one side of it where they're like, you see another bodybuilder died steroids, another bodybuilder died steroids. You seem not to be looking at it through that lens. Like it's not just that. What else do you think is at play here if it's not just steroid abuse, you know, being too heavy and dying of a heart attack? What else do you think people aren't thinking about when it comes to this situation?
Man, I think there's a lot of things that can go into somebody, somebody dying, First of all, I'd have to say, like, out of the several people that have passed in the last, let's just say 5 years or so, just mathematically, there has to be a couple that it just happened. There has to be a few where it just literally just happened. And somebody could vouch for them and say, hey, look, I'm their cardiologist and I was watching them and like shit looked pretty normal. But sometimes things just happen to people. Or there could have been, in some cases, I'm sure there may have been recreational drugs. And I'm not trying to take the blame or the stigma off of steroids, because I definitely think that they had a hand in it as well. But I also kind of wonder about the extreme weight gain, the extreme weight loss, the bulking and the cutting. I don't think that by itself would kill you, but I also don't believe that steroids by themselves will kill you unless you're completely reckless with them. If you were completely reckless with bulking and cutting, yes, I guess you could kill yourself with it. You could work yourself so hard that potentially, anything's possible. But I think it's a combination of a lot of different things that have happened. And I also think that there might be some other types of drugs in here that we don't really know about. Maybe some recreational drugs to compound everything. But as I was saying, your blood is going to get thicker. When your blood is thicker and your blood pressure is higher, it's going to make your body work really, really hard. And at some point, it's going to overstress your body, and your body's going to be working too hard.
Go ahead. Oh, your mic.
Sorry, I was typing. I had to mute myself. I don't know if you have experienced this or if you know anybody that did go through this, but when you're saying like these guys had blood work on a regular basis, then maybe they had a cardiologist sitting right next to them, like, no, you're actually pretty good. I know from like when I've gotten my labs done, depending on who I give them to look at, they will say either you're totally healthy or you really need to focus on this or that. I'll just go ahead and just name names, but like when I gave my blood work to Tony Huge, he was just like, dude, you're so healthy right now. And then when I give it to someone like Merrick, there's like, maybe you might want to focus on this or that. You know what I mean? So do you think that while these high-level bodybuilders are getting blood work done, whoever they're working with, maybe they will have an exception for them because of who they are and what they do? Meaning if they were a normal everyday person and their cholesterol's this, their hematocrit's that, they'd be like, holy shit, dude, you have to go address this right now, versus bodybuilders like, oh, you're still going to compete? Like, okay, well, maybe after this next show, that's something that you might want to address.
And I want to add on to what Andrew said as part of a question. I saw a video from Derek recently where he was talking about this. And he was talking about there's something that a lot of bodybuilders, they may get their blood work done, but they're not checking or taking this certain thing that they should be, but they're not. So I think is there probably a lot of shit that they're just not paying attention to because they might be going to normal docs who don't know their shit?
Well, there's that too. 100%. There's so many different things going on here. It's hard to like pinpoint.
Yeah.
But what people will do that are sick in general, even someone that's obese and they go to the doctor and they get their blood work done and the doctor says, oh my goodness, like this is, I got some bad news. Turns out you're diabetic. What do people usually do? They usually go for a second opinion because they're frustrated with the doctor. They're like, I don't have diabetes. Right. Like, I'm only 30 pounds overweight. Like, what's the big deal? I haven't worked out in 2 years, but you're telling me I got, like, fuck you. They get insulted a lot of times, and they go and they want to get a different diagnosis. And sometimes people will hop around so many times, not any different than when you ask somebody, you say, hey, Nsima, what's good? I really want to build up my chest. What should I do? And he tells you incline bench with an arch, get full range of motion. But I wanted to hear something different. I wanted to hear him say flat bench. Mark, keep doing those flat benches, And then I go to Andrew and I'm just going to keep popping around. I'm going to go to Stan, and Stan might finally say, hey, flat bench. So Stan's going to be the guy I listen to. So I think a lot of times that's what's happening with some of these bodybuilders. Somebody gets their blood work done, their cholesterol's way off. You don't know the most recent science. You ain't got to worry about your cholesterol. That's dumb. That's what people have been saying the last maybe 6-7 years. But more recently, there's been people say, hey, hold on a second. Don't ignore the cholesterol. We got to look deeper into your cholesterol. And it's not just your cholesterol. It's your overall lipid profile that we need to be more concerned about. And if there's any issues with your cholesterol and your lipid profile, then there's other types of tests that we should do. We should look into getting a coronary calcium scan. There's just a lot. There's so many different types of tests that you can do. And I'm excited because coming up, we have a cardiologist that will be on the show, and he can help really address and really pinpoint a lot of this stuff. But, I saw a video from Cali Muscle, and Cali Muscle said that he did get a little bit of blood work done here and there, and he may have had one of those cases that Derek was talking about where he didn't get, like, precise, but he didn't want to. He said, he mentioned it in the video. He's like, I knew some shit was a little bit off, but he's probably thinking like, I'm fucking, I don't know, 8% body. Cali Muscle looks amazing.
And he's young for the most, yeah.
Cali Muscle looks incredible. The guy looks awesome. I think a lot of people would love to have that much muscle mass with that small amount of body fat. He's fucking jacked. So he doesn't look like he'd be an unhealthy person by any means, but although he's carrying a crazy amount of muscle mass. And I don't know if we know what the cost of that is, but I mean, maybe we're starting to learn. But anyway, in his case, he was just like, I was just kind of ignoring it. And I was just kind of going about my business. And he talked about how much he would brag about the different kind of junk foods that he would eat. But look, man, how often the guy looked incredible. Your genetics and even taking drugs only take you so far. Cali Muscle was eating his chicken and broccoli, just like everybody else. I'm sure he was eating fairly healthy most of the time. Sometimes some of that stuff is to sensationalize things.
Just for videos.
Yeah, and to make things more. I mean, I don't know his business. I don't know that to a T, but I'm just imagining that was probably the case with him.
Yeah. It's
and he's still alive, by the way. He had a heart attack, so I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, and we were also having a conversation about it. I don't know. I personally haven't heard about this stuff happening too much to a lot of powerlifters who do take steroids. You don't hear about this as often in powerlifting, and I wonder: is it because they're not getting as lean? Is it because of the substances that they're taking versus the things that high-level bodybuilders take?
This is completely mind-boggling, because if Louis Simmons has just some of the funniest quotes, and this is not necessarily funny, but they're just interesting the way that he words stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He said if steroids could kill you, he's like, we would have seen it happen time and time again in the gym. He's like, we've had some people to really rev up and take a lot of stuff. And it's not to say that they won't harm you at all, but his point was, it's not like we don't have 5, 6, 7 guys over the years. And Louis been at Westside Barbell. He's had the gym for 40 years. Again, not trying to say that it's not doing anything, because who knows how those guys' lives are right now. They could be in their 50s, 60s, and that's still way too young to die too,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we don't really know, some of the ramifications of some of the stuff, but I guess what he meant by it was, like, they seem like they're doing pretty good now. Some of them are retired. They've been retired for a while, and they still seem okay. And when you consider that powerlifting, especially at that time, back when the WPO finals were really popular and multiply gear was popular, these people were huge. People were massive. In my own gym, I had 10 guys that were over 300 pounds. I had 10 lifters that were over 300 pounds, a bunch of guys squatting over 900 pounds. I mean, people just moving crazy weight, people bleeding every single time they squat because the blood pressure's so high it's fucking shooting out of your nose. These things that when you are on the outside looking in, you're like, this is complete madness. What has happened here? What is going on here? But if you start to look at some other sports, you look at NASCAR, you look at MMA, there's a story in MMA where a guy wrote a book called Blood in the Cage. And the guy that wrote the book, he went to Pat Militich's gym, and one of the guys called him into the ring. He said, the guy who was writing the book, he said, get in the ring. And the guy was like, no. And he's like, get in the fucking ring. And he's like, I'm like, what? Why do you want me to get in the ring? He's like, because I'm going to break your nose. And he's like, I don't need you to break my nose for me to write about fighting. He's like, no, I do. I need to. And so the guy kind of refused, and they talked it out, and he ended up, still writing the book. But so in that sport, that's what these guys in this gym are thinking. Like, you can't even relate to me unless I break some of your bones. And so sports from the outside looking in, they look crazy. MMA was completely rejected for years and years and years. Now it's all over ESPN. Now Disney bought it, for God's sakes, right? Mm-hmm. It's insane, because the UFC was banned all over the place. You couldn't even, I mean, they had to switch a fight last minute from one state to another. And I mean, now the UFC is such a huge success because they came in and they did stuff with the sport that allowed the state and the government to be like, okay, we can kind of recognize this as a sport. You guys aren't just savagely trying to kill each other. This is not untrained individuals. These are very trained individuals. Another sport that had a ton of scrutiny, that had a tough start, was professional football. There was a lot of individuals that were dying playing professional football before they invented the helmet. Mm-hmm. They used to wear stuff on their head. They had some sort of headgear, but they didn't really have a helmet. The government, or whoever was the president at the time, FDR, whoever it was, stepped in and fucking banned football. Like, there's no more football. So somebody came up with the idea of a helmet. Bodybuilding probably needs to come up with their own remedy that is similar to a fucking helmet. And that might be the abolishment of non-drug tested bodybuilding forever.
But with that, the sport would disappear. The NPC bodybuilding would disappear.
But it might have to, because so let's say bodybuilding carries on, right? And for some reason, I don't know why people are dying more now than they were when Dorian Yates was, at his reign, and some of these other big dudes.
Are they dying more now though? Like,
I believe so.
Yeah?
I believe so. I mean, the sport could be more popular, so it could be a numbers game. There could be exponentially more people. Therefore, I mean, people do die.
Yeah.
There's a heart attack every 40 seconds in the United States. So, I mean, I don't know. But at some point, anyway, my point was going to be is that if it carries on, and let's say that the amount of people that died in the last 5 years, let's say they die let's say that same number dies in 2022. Someone's going to step in and do something probably. And they're probably going to say, hey, look, I don't know how it's gotten to be this way in other sports, but like USA weightlifting, that's all there is. There's USA weightlifting. There's no other. You can compete in other shit, but if you do, you're not competing in USA weightlifting.
Yeah.
USA swimming. There's not some other thing where you swim and. So I don't know. I don't know if the government can step in on something like that, or if the states can step in on something like that. But I would imagine that at some point, if more and more people die, somebody's got to step in somewhere. Maybe the leagues themselves. But I don't know what they would do. I don't know how.
Yeah.
I mean, drug testing would help, right? It would, to try to make it natural.
We'd have to stop being used to looking at freaks. Like, I mean, there are still freaks in natural federations that are tested, even though people say they like to cycle. But at the end of the day, like, if you're actually looking at what is the body capable at the top levels, the body's not capable of what we're seeing in NPC classic physique and NPC bodybuilding. The body isn't capable of doing that on its own without substances. And these guys without substances would still be extremely impressive bodybuilders and classic physique guys. Sebum without drugs would still be huge. He'd still be a big, impressive bodybuilder. But
You'd have people, I mean, Instagram would be, or social media, or, some sort of unsanctioned shows or something might be kind of where things would shift to. I mean, I'm not saying that I even have any information that the government would ever even care or step in on anything.
Yeah.
I don't really think that would ever happen, but I mean, it could. I mean, I just kind of am curious as to if things did continue, if somebody, I mean, if I was a competitor and I competed for several years and people were dying, I would want to be part of some sort of movement that started to figure out some sort of solution, but I don't know what that is.
And I was just thinking, Strongman is one of the sports where these guys get if we're talking about muscle mass per, like, on frame, those are the biggest guys. Like, you got Brian Shaw, you got Hathor, you got those are the biggest guys. And I don't even really hear about that much there unless I'm uneducated, and there have been high level strongman deaths.
No, those dudes are, I mean, those guys are huge.
They're huge, but I just want to bring up the numbers game again. How many strongmen are there compared to bodybuilders?
You're totally right. That's true.
Yeah, not a lot.
Yeah,
that's true.
There's a lot of people that do, Olympic lifting. I don't know what the numbers would be worldwide, but there's probably a good number of people that participate in really high level Olympic lifting, but because it's tested, and again, tested just means whatever you want to think it means, but the individuals are tested. Maybe that's because I'm unaware of them dying either. Yeah, and that's a strength sport.
I'm curious from the listeners, guys, you guys have been hearing us talk about this. I've got two questions, I think. For those of you who maybe you've chosen not to take steroids, or maybe you've chosen to take steroids, is this something that you think about? Is this something that you factor into your decision making in terms of hopping on or not hopping on? For me personally, I'm not ever, because there's a lot of risk personally. So there's that. But then number two, for those of you guys who are fans of bodybuilding, would you still enjoy bodybuilding if you weren't seeing the freaks on stage? Because these bodies wouldn't be this big. These guys wouldn't be this heavy. But would you still enjoy bodybuilding if they were just high-level natural bodybuilders who still look amazing, but they're not going to be that big.
I actually put up a poll just now on the live chat. We only got 25 votes, so if you guys are checking out live, hit that poll and let us know. Because I basically just asked, like, would bodybuilding fade away if everyone was drug tested?
I don't think it would fade away though.
Yeah.
I just think it would be different because again, you look at, and everyone likes to say, okay, drug tested doesn't mean drug free. It's the best we can fucking do.
Right. Yeah, it's the version that we got.
Yeah.
It's the best we can do, and you'll say, oh, they're cycling whatever, but it's the best we can do.
It would probably. I mean, it'd have to help.
It would,
and
absolutely. You don't see natural bodybuilders dying straight up. No, you don't see any natural bodybuilders dying of heart attacks. I'm serious. You don't see that.
I wonder if, you know how like the UFC had to implement WADA in order to make it a legit corporation so that way they can sell it. But, you know, like, and I know like NFL, NBA, everyone's always going to say that everyone at the top is taking something.
Of course.
But I wonder if, and this is just like more of a wishful thought or a dream, is if it was drug tested and it became more legit, if bodybuilders would become household names like an Aaron Rodgers or something. You know what I mean? Like, if we all knew for sure, or at least we knew that they were getting tested and they were the most elite, it had nothing to do with the best chemistry, it was just hard work and genetics. If that would boost some of these names to be even bigger than who they are right now.
I don't know, man. I think it would take a long fucking time because
yeah.
there would be a time where people would be like,
everyone off.
"Oh, whoops." I was going like this because I was trying to hold my idea. I speak with my hands.
Sorry.
But there'd be this shift in time where people are used to seeing massively big physiques minus 50 pounds.
Yeah,
right.
But I'm just curious if it would draw, I don't know, some of these natural freaks like if Francis Ngannou decided, like, actually I want to do bodybuilding, like, you're telling me he wouldn't look insane on stage?
Oh, he would.
He would
if he trained that way, he'd gain hella muscle.
He wouldn't be over 300 pounds like a big Ramy, but
yeah.
I mean, I think that would be really exciting.
I mean, there's something interesting. You know, jiu-jitsu is a sport that's been getting really big over the past decade. And yeah, there are jiu-jitsu athletes that take stuff, but it is drug tested at the highest levels for the most part. There are guys that have gotten caught, like Kanan Duarte, who's a great black belt, but he got caught because he was on some shit. You know, he was drug tested and he ended up getting kicked out for a few years. So I think there is an idea of like, I don't think bodybuilding will reach that type of level currently because it's just really open about drug use. And that's, for the general population, that's not, what's the word I'm looking for? That's not enjoyable.
If you think about strongman and powerlifting, there are drugs that you could take for strongman and powerlifting that would help, that maybe some of the bodybuilders use, but they don't really help as much. You know, things like growth hormone, things like insulin. Bodybuilding, it seems to, like, on the level of being like an IFBB pro, it seems like there's kind of only one way to play the game.
Yeah.
You have to be on a particular regimen of drugs. Like, you're not just on like testosterone. Let's be very clear with that for people that don't really know what the hell we're talking about. None of these guys that have died are not individuals that just utilize testosterone, and they do not use therapeutic dosages. They have been abusing anabolic steroids, all of them, for many, many, many years, probably decades in a lot of cases. And I'm not placing any judgment on them. I've done the same thing myself, and many other people have done it, to each their own. But the point is that bodybuilding, the requirement of it is to be as big, as jacked as possible, to hold as much muscle mass as you can. A lot of the philosophies and a lot of the ways that was being done, especially years ago, is a little different than it's being done right now. So I wonder, in the kind of Chris Bumstead era, because he's driving kind of a new form of bodybuilding to where he's going to be, I mean, he might go down as being the most famous bodybuilder ever, you know, who knows where it's going to take him. Arnold's physique was like that too, right? Where it just had this quote unquote more I know Arnold had like 22-inch arms, so forgive me for saying a more natural look. But it looks different than what Ronnie Coleman had going on.
Or Big Rammy.
Or yeah, I mean those physiques are completely absurd, and they're not built off of testosterone. They're built off a giant cocktail of a minimum of 3 different types of anabolics, of testosterone, of trenbolone, of masteron or primobolan, or any of these things. They're all
growth hormone and insulin and all that shit.
It's an arsenal, and it's a minimum. You know how people say like pay to play, like this hand of poker costs $50K just to play. Bodybuilding is like that. It's like, okay, the minimum requirement is you got to be on 10 different things. I mean, literally. And not only on 10 different things, but you're coming off of being the heaviest you ever were, where people were praising you, like, dude, you looked sick in the off season. You got the 320, that was amazing. And now you're coming down over maybe a long period of time. You diet for 16 weeks. Now everyone's praising you because you're leaner and drier. Oh, you look sick, and you're just you are sick. You're fucking dehydrated. You can't move. Your bones are brittle. Your joints hurt. Your dick ain't working. Everything's kind of falling apart. But you hang on just enough to be able to get on stage again, to flex. You look great. You fucking win. Put that shit on repeat for as long as you can handle. That's kind of the way the sport is.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah, somebody had mentioned some of these guys are competing 6-7 times a year. So what you said 6 times, and then do it again next year.
Right.
Fuck. So I mean, yeah, that has to have that much tax on your whole body. You're not going to get away with that for free.
In terms of strongman, probably about, I guess it would be like 6 or 7 years ago now, when I got a call on Thanksgiving that a friend of mine died, and he was a strongman competitor. His name was Mike Jenkins. Mike died of again, steroids and things like that don't help. I don't know the exact shit that he was on, but he was a professional strongman athlete who won the Arnold Classic. So, I mean, make your own judgment call there. But he died in his sleep. And I think a lot of these big athletes, a lot of these bodybuilders, they probably have sleep apnea. It's probably untreated.
That guy Craig Kovacs, I think he said he died in his sleep at 44 in 2013. Yeah. Massive bodybuilder.
Yeah. So I mean, I think I pointed out on a show previously that Reggie White, great football player from years ago, legendary Hall of Famer, he died in his sleep as well. Sleep apnea is very, very serious, and for some people, it might not ever become a huge problem because, their red blood cell count might get a little high because they're not getting enough oxygen throughout the night. Their body stops breathing and so forth. That is still highly problematic, but it's not as bad if it's somebody that's not really trying to push their body, somebody that's not taking a bunch of drugs and really having a lot of amplifiers for. So I think that's what we're dealing with here, is there's a lot of amplification of the circumstances that kind of require a bodybuilder to be this current level of IFBB pro bodybuilder that we're seeing. And I think as a result, people are dying from it. I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Just to double check, someone's asking, how much do you weigh, Nsima?
I range between 240 and 245.
I was correct.
Actually, I recently got up to 249, but that was because of some extra carbohydrates for a few days. But I'm back to 240 to 245.
All I did was up my carbs.
Yeah. If you want to put this shit in the calculator, overestimate my body fat percentage, put me at 10%, 240, and you'll get some numbers that you won't like in the FFMI. So I'm probably actually 9%, but yeah.
So we know the Icelandic motherfuckers are genetic mutants. We know that these guys can lift like crazy. Yeah. We know that they're crazy strong. But John Paul Sigmason, which is an amazing name, right? These guys have the best names. 4-time world's strongest man winner, died during deadlifting, supposedly.
Oh,
what?
Shit.
So,
yikes.
I think people talk about dying and doing what they love. There's an example of somebody dying, like doing the very sport that they love. It's unfortunate when people pass, under any circumstances. But I also believe that Jesse Marundi died after doing what are called breathing squats, where you do 20 reps of squats with a weight that you can probably squat like 10 times. It's a very common practice in strongman, because sometimes they don't always have access to all the implements that they use during a competition. So they sometimes will just figure out ways of just crushing themselves in the gym. And my understanding is he did a set of breathing squats where he did 10 reps, and then what you do is you just breathe until you can do another rep. You breathe till you can do another rep. I think he did complete his set. I think he got to his 20 reps that he wanted, and I think he just never was able to catch his breath after that and passed on. And that was probably a good 8 years ago. And he was a strongman competitor as well. But like we're talking about here, I haven't really heard of, my friend Mike Jenkins passed, but that was 6-7 years ago. We're kind of seeing it more from bodybuilders, and it just kind of raises the question of why now? Like, why are we seeing it now? Does it have anything to do with what's gone on in the last 2 years? I don't believe it does. I think it's coincidental to some degree. I think it has to do with sleep apnea. I think it has to do with high blood pressure, and I believe it has to do with high red blood cell count. But I don't know nothing. I'm not, I barely know much about some of these things. I know the surface of it. I'm not even close to considering myself an expert on any of this. It's just some of my thoughts. And a lot of these people, some of these people are people that I've been very close with. These are people that I know. I'm a huge fan of Charles Glass. I love Charles Glass. I know we know Michael Hearn. These are people that have really been impacted by, some of the deaths. So while they may not be some of these people that have passed, they may not be people that we associate with on a regular basis, but we are close to some of their friends. And Sean Roden is somebody that I knew. I know he's leaving behind a daughter, and it's just rough, man. It's brutal. And I know, that I know Charles really well. He's a really good dude, and I hate to see this happening. And it would be really cool if there could be some way of figuring out something. I don't know what the something is, but maybe someone like Charles Glass would have some ideas on what can be done, since he's seen the sport for so long. Maybe he would have some ideas on what could be done to help, so we don't see this trend continue. Andrew, want to take us on out of here?
Sure thing. Thank you, everybody, for checking out today's episode, and thank you, everybody, on the live chat. You guys were awesome today. Obviously, a topic like this will create, a lot of back and forth, but everyone was very chill today, so I appreciate that, because when you guys get into shout matches, it just kind of sucks for everybody. So appreciate that. Please make sure you guys like this video on your way out, and please follow the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. My Instagram and Twitter is at I am Andrew Z, at the Andrew Z on TikTok. And shout out to LMNT for sponsoring today's episode. Drink lmnt.com/power project. Head over there, get a value bundle. Links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes. And Nsima, where you at?
At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. At Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark.
At Mark's Billy Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.